Hey, hello! I am your wandering narrator, Ira Klotz, and welcome to our first video in the Write the Way Out video series, where I just kind of want to talk about writing because I am a storyteller at heart. So I thought this would be a good video to start off with, because you've come up with your idea, you're excited. What now? Well, now you can take the time to organize some notes on some things, figure out the plot and be able to write that down, I think at least with a sentence. I started writing when I was about 14, 15 years old. And it was just complete free write, stream of conscious kind of writing for the whole novel, which is insane. It took about 5 years to actually get done because I was in school, but I did it. I got the first draft done, but reading back was kind of a mess because I found free writing, a long form especially, was messy. It's just the best way I can describe it. It was messy. The original plot changed about halfway through and became like this Wonderland thing when it started off as kind of more of a mystical forest kind of idea. I even remember thinking when I was writing it too that I wanted it to be kind of a slow burn love story just in the background, not taking over too much. 3 pages later they were in love. So it was a mess. She was a messy girl. But it was it was my first writing thing, so that was a good place, I think, to start for me. And I learned from that some notes and building needs to be done beforehand, at least a little bit. I've always been very strong about not wanting to do too many notes because I think that kind of constrains my creativity personally, and I didn't want to have my creativity boxed in. I wanted there to be enough flowingness, because that's when you get the fun details, that's when you get the good, spicy one-liners. I think is when you have stream of conscious, you surprise yourself, and surprising yourself, I think, is really good in a creative field. Since then, I started to kind of pick up some building beforehand, especially long form. So I would always create kind of the overall plot of the story, and then I would break it down chapter by chapter and just have about like a sentence long description per chapter. And this was really nice because it helped focus me while I was free writing into what was going to happen and make sure that each chapter plot line was in theme and was moving the story forward for the overall book plots. And that was a really good way to kind of help keep things not controlled, but focused and moving forward and still flowing. And since then, I have actually added on even more, especially with long-form novels and especially with fantasy when world building is involved. So I have currently one story going. It is on Wattpad if you want to check it out. Mature content there, so be advised and be forewarned. But what I started doing with that is there is world building involved, and so I opened up a Discord on there to kind of keep all my stuff contained, and that is a really good place. I think to be able to have it all in one place is really nice, and be able to have like multiple pages and be able to have it add on. I think notebooks can be kind of hard because you keep adding on, and then eventually, you can space it out, but eventually like one section's gonna break out of the little bit that you designated for it. So the Discord has been really nice, I think, for that reason. I can just jot down a bunch of points. I have one more story going right now that I'm very excited about. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I think I want to finish the first draft, I think, before starting to talk about it. But it'll be a surprise. I'm hoping by the end of the year, early next year, we will see. But with that book, I have a special bookbinder that I'm very excited to show you guys. And so, as you can see here, this is my bookbinder. Very plain looking. I may decorate it later. Who knows? But when we open it up, this contains all the information. So all my character sheets, all world building notes, and all the locations and stuff. And I've started adding tabs to it because I found it's easier to flip through then. Before then, it would take me about 5 minutes to find the information that I needed. And that was not going to work because that was going to stop the free-flowing writingness that I have going for myself. So I added these tabs. At the top here, we have the characters and the character sheets. In these character sheets, I have all the facts about them: name, age, birthday, where they live, what's their financial situation like. I have their personality, and I break that down into their likes and dislikes, about 5 descriptive words of like their quote-unquote good personality traits and their quote-unquote bad personality traits. Inspiration pictures for their style, and examples of their character voice, because one thing I am trying to work on more is having better character voices, especially when there's multiple characters. I feel like it's good to have distinct character voices. Breaking that down, and I'll have examples of those in each character section. And stuff about like their past too. And then on the side here, we have the world building notes. So this includes things like the rules of magic in this world. What's their transportation situation like? What's their communication situation like, especially for long distance communication? It's going to involve a school. So I broke down each class subject, and what's going to be in there is like what's taught, notes about each subject for myself. There's going to be kind of a fascist group, so information about that, and then eventually like what's the government like in this book, and what's the like cultural history like. And then at the bottom you'll see I haven't started doing this yet, but eventually I'm going to add tabs down at the bottom for locations. And in these sections I'll have the names, where are they located, inspiration pictures, and what's their function in the world or in the story. So things like if a political building will have a function more in the world, but like if it's a special tree or spiritual tree kind of thing, that will be more of a function in the story. It doesn't really affect the world, but it's going to affect the plot. And I think those are important to label out as well. I have all of this ready, or kind of started. It's not 100% ready right now, because something that I don't want to do is create all these notes and spend years and years and years world building and note taking and all this stuff and not writing, because what I do, I am a storyteller, and so what I love to do is to actually write the story. And I don't want to postpone that because that's stupid. So what I do is I kind of create enough of these notes to get me started. So main characters, immediate locations, and then the general plot and each plot of the chapter outline, like I said before. Everything else I usually figure out along the way. And so as I'm writing, freeform writing, when I come across something about, they're contacting another character, I'll pause and either write a note about it or question in the margins about it to come back to later, or I will pause and take a moment to figure that out. And this works really well for me because it kind of keeps things flowing. And like I said, I don't have to postpone joy for years later. I can start now, and I can figure this stuff out in the first draft, and then in the second draft I can go and add it all later. May change the plot, we don't know, but that's, I think, part of the joys of writing is that sometimes surprises happen and things change, and we just have to go along with it sometimes. But this is my beautiful bookbinder, and I'm very excited to share it with you because it's a new thing that I've started doing, and I think it's going to work out really well. And I think, too, that it's important to talk about these things before writing, because I don't think people talk about the world building process or the note-taking process as much. And I think it's important to talk about because there does need to be, I think, some preparedness before you start writing, because it can, like I said, it can help focus the story. Otherwise, you'll run into what 15-year-old me ran into, and that your book completely changed halfway through, and she turns out to be kind of a messy girl that you don't really know how to edit. So I just wanted to talk about this and give some examples of what I've learned over the years and how I've kind of honed the skill and what the lessons that I've learned for you guys, so that maybe it doesn't take years for you to figure out, but maybe it does, because it's one of those things of like, you just have to kind of fuck around and find out what works best for you. Sometimes meticulous note-taking and preparedness works really well for people, or if you're more like me in the free writing range, it kind of kills the flow of it, and I really like to have that flow of energy. So leave in the comments if you want maybe something that you've learned about your own note-taking before you start writing, and to help share and help people figure out other ideas too of things that they could try and see what works for them. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for listening and letting me show off my beautiful bookbinder. And I will come up with a calling card, I guess, another time. The end. Ooh, magic, magic, magic.
Well, it didn't look like a...
That was graceful. I liked that one.
Yeah, no like a big abrupt hate on your, face or anything, so that's good.